Hello everybody, let's have a look at some of these charts. Just do a bit of a freebie I suppose. It's mainly because I've upgraded my computer and I've gone to Windows 10. If any of you were like on my last live stream, it's an absolute horrendous situation. And yeah, I kept on getting the blue screen of death. I upgraded my PC, you see. I stuck a new processor in thinking that it would just be like putting a piece of Lego in there. And I've wrecked it, basically. I've wrecked it. So this is a tester, really, because I've got my main live stream tomorrow for the Patreon users. So it's basically just a test. We'll do it for an hour. Hopefully you'll get some value out of it. We'll look at some charts just as normal, and hopefully there won't be a blue screen of death at some point. So it is open to the public. So if you could like it and stuff, if everybody could just give this video a like, so maybe I could attract some more business, you know. But but that's completely up to you. Yeah, like it if you want. If you don't, I'm not gonna be too concerned about that. Right, so I'll tell you what. We'll just start with a bit of an overview of what the hell's going on over here with Bitcoin, because it is a bit of a shocking scenario, I suppose, for most people. But personally, I'm not too bothered. Not too bothered at all. I suppose the main concern is how altcoins are going to react, whether Bitcoin goes up or down. That is the main concern. And again, you know, this live stream isn't like my normal ones for Patreon. It's just a free hour's worth of live stream. And if any of you aren't members of the Patreon, what we do every Tuesdays and Fridays, we do these live streams like this. We look at all the altcoins under the sun as best as we can get through anyway in a 2-hour period. And I suppose we try and break down if that chart is good, bad, ugly, or whatever. So I mean, this is whatever goes on with Bitcoin is a really weird situation for altcoins, because this is our multi-year support trend line. So this is the Bitcoin dominance, multi-year support trend line. And if you think about it, it goes all the way back down to here as well. So if there ever is going to be a bounce, obviously Bitcoin dominance will bounce at some point. We know that. But if we're thinking about where's the most likely place for it to bounce, or trying to work out what's risky for yourself, there is a very strong chance that we do catch a bounce around this zone, really. I mean, bouncy all over there, bouncy all over here. And since we've been breaking down from here, I've been saying, as bullish as I've been in alts, since January, saying that we're going to have this alt season. We were getting it every time we came down to what I thought could be a bouncy zone. We just broke down through it, straight down through there. We spent a fair bit of time. This is on the weekly, by the way. I spent a fair bit of time on this upwards trend line of support here, which comes in from here. And then we broke down below there, and then we were saying, okay, 60% dominant, and then broke down through there. I said, okay, we got this zone here, broke down from there, and now we're down here. So I mean, it never fails to amaze me how far this chart can keep going, but there is going to be a point, there will be a point where it does bounce, and this could be the catalyst for that. I'm not saying it is or anything. Just for absolute transparency, I'm about 50-50 at the moment, Bitcoin to altcoins, so I'm perfectly balanced in a way against any situation. And the altcoins that I've got in my, they're generally ones that I think there's plenty more upside throughout the rest of the year than there is downside. So it's not just any altcoin. I mean, it's a blanket statement to say that altcoins will gain, if this breaks down. That's not the case. We were saying before, when top caps were about to moon, I was saying that top caps are the ones with the strong coins. These are the ones that are going to move. There was a lot of altcoins that didn't move as this broke down to this level. So anyways, a bit of an overview for you there about the altcoin situation. But for Bitcoin, this is the main thing. I made a video on it today already, but this is pretty much the deal. Same as it was earlier, really. Bitcoin has broken down, as we all know, through a I suppose you could argue it's a fundamental reason, isn't it? Really. So a black swan kind of vibe going on here, but then it does. I suppose pose the question that there is it's only as strong as its weakest link, and it's proven to us now that there is a very weak link in Bitcoin. And if everybody's wealth is hanging on the balance of a bloody power cut, it doesn't really bode too well for the grand scheme of things. However, I'm not particularly bothered. It's just a bit of a shame, but it's good that we see these things, to be honest. China has a bloody power cut, and the price dumps, you know, by 13% in an hour. It's a big deal, actually. It's a big deal. Actually, if you really think about it, it's worse than what happened in March with the COVID crash. That was that was a panic sell overall. You know, people trying to claw back some wealth, I suppose, from everything else that had dumped, basically dumping throughout. You know, as the Dixie just rocketed as well, just spiked massively. So this is more of a black swan event, but then it does offer a bearish fundamental situation with Bitcoin. So there is that. Now that I've been thinking about it, there is also that. So we don't really trade fundamentals. We can't, not on charts. We trade the chart. So overall, the picture is that I actually think that we probably will forge a bounce from here. So when we go to the 4 hourly, it's pretty simple to see what's going on the 4 hourly. We really just need to reclaim, first of all, the 200 exponential. Is very important that we reclaim that, which is currently sitting at around about 57,750. The reason it's so important that we reclaim that is because this green moving average here, the 50 exponential moving average, these two will form a death cross, and that is what we do not want to see. A death cross usually yields about 30% downside on the 4 hourly. It's very common. If you get a death cross on the 4 hourly, you will get continuation of a move down. If you get continuation of the move down in an official downtrend, which is what it would become, then you basically you move that on to the next level, basically to the daily, I would say. And then if we get a death cross on the daily, which is a long way away, probably impossible, but who knows? The 200 exponential is moving up, but today it's at 38,500. If we go down below there, then we do run the risk of getting a death cross on the daily, which would be even worse. It'll be even worse. I don't think any of that's going to happen, but the 4 hourly, we are beneath all the major moving averages, and being beneath the 200 exponential for any prolonged period of time will end in a death cross. And this is never the way to do it, but if we think about this in terms of how is this going to perform, so if we're below it, we'll just say it's going to be moving down ever so slightly. This is a 4 hourly. We have not very long to reclaim it before what would be a death cross, and this is just a rough figure. The death cross would take place on the 22nd, so not far away. But again, we just all we need to do is reclaim the 200 exponential, but failing to do that, we'll get that death cross. And death crosses, I'm telling you, they do play out very often, way more regularly than a golden cross. In an initial move, you get a death cross, everyone's like, right, that's it, I'm off. You get a golden cross, you do get a pump, and then you got to get a dump down into it. But generally, with a death cross, I would argue that they play out in a much more I suppose a reliable way, really, as we all know, when things start to go down, they go down fast. So anyway, that's the bearish vibe that we've got going on here, and I can't lie. I mean, that is a very realistic possibility that death cross will happen if we don't get above that 200 exponential by the 22nd or maybe the 23rd, when that will cross. So we've got about 3 or 4 days to reclaim that area. 57,700, or we'll just call it 58,000, has to be reclaimed. Right, so overall, I mean, at the moment I'm not particularly worried. I'm only going to get worried if and when that happens, and then I will flip to a bear, basically. But I'm not a bear right now. I'm very optimistic that all of these areas, these dips, are technically, in my opinion, they're for buying until shown otherwise. Right, so let's have a look at some of these questions coming in. Right, so. Wow, it's quite a lot of people. When you open it up to the public, it makes a big difference. We'll never get through all these questions. 2 a.m. for you. Nice one, mate. Right, so like I say, the normal live stream will be tomorrow, full-on 2-hour job, but obviously that's just for Patreon users. So we're going to have a look at some charts then, shall we? You want me to have a look at AVAX? Okay, let's have a peep at that, shall we? And we'll get through some of these together. I can't imagine these looking at these are going to be very useful, I'm afraid, because Bitcoin is the one that's going to govern it. So I'm probably going to argue with the majority of these that we're going to look at that they're basically all going to hang in the balance of Bitcoin. Yeah, personally, I mean, it is exactly the same, exactly the same vibe. We're at the bottom of the Bollinger Band, you know, being caught from there. You know, if you want to catch knives, that's basically all this is. This is a matter of catching knives and hoping for the best. I'm only really catching Bitcoin knives, because if Bitcoin goes down, it goes down. I would expect it to go down less than an altcoin. But if you're a bit more of a, I suppose, a bit more reckless, or if you know something that I don't know about a token, that you believe in it and you want to get a good price, even if you expect it to come down further, then feel free to catch an altcoin knife. Now, the thing is with AVAX, so I was trading this. We traded a lot of this breakout here, and it was a good setup, but it's obviously not a good setup right now. So we'll have a look at the way that it's behaved in the past. And again, we can't really think about it in the same terms, because this is all following Bitcoin's problems. Basically, everything's inheriting Bitcoin's problems. There's really nothing. There's really nothing positive to say about the way that this really looks. But if we're thinking about it in terms of support resistance, we do have a pretty clear area down here, pretty much where we bounced from, to be honest with you. We're getting bounces around here, bounces around here. So I mean, as far as catching a knife is concerned, yeah, fair enough, you could go for it. The Ichimoku cloud is green over here. Well, you know, and we did have a conversion baseline cross over here, which, you know, has been forced out of its validity. So as far as catching knives are concerned, you could try it, and you know, when this one goes, it should go, and you know, it'll be one of those things that you could probably look back on in hindsight and go, wow, that was a bloody good price. This one was about to break out before, until that whole Bitcoin business ruined the party. But yeah, we do have to think about Bitcoin, and also what I mentioned at the very beginning of the video about Bitcoin bouncing, Bitcoin dominance bouncing. That does worry me as well, because if Bitcoin bounces, do you remember this bounce from around here? This is when Bitcoin basically became the most fashionable thing in the world, and I'd never seen Bitcoin dominance increase like that before, in such a speedy way, because altcoins normally they follow Bitcoin going up by their dollar value, but in this instance they weren't. Everything was being sucked out of the market going into Bitcoin. I don't expect we'll see something like that again, because that was basically Bitcoin at its most fashionable in my lifetime. You know, even back in 2017 it was fashionable, but not to the extent that it was here. Everybody was getting involved in it. Now I think what's happening is that, you know, the market is a bit more fashionable as a whole. People are finding their way, but there is always the chance that when Bitcoin does bounce, and if it starts to really pick up pace and pick up steam, then alts will feel it, not just with their sats, but with their tether. That's not my main preference. I actually think at this stage we won't get a situation like that again, but we have to judge everything upon its chart. If it doesn't have a strong chart, for instance, it's not likely to follow Bitcoin. So top cap coins probably will, and a handful of others also will. I've noticed that some of the DeFi coins have been okay throughout this. Like YFI seems to be doing pretty well despite what's going on with Bitcoin. Anyway, I'm rambling a loads, but I suppose it's good to put things into context. And so overall, this is a bit of a do or die moment pretty much here, and if you wanted to try it you could, but I'm not your financial advisor, and that goes for everything that I'm about to talk about. None of this is financial advice, but Bitcoin is the one that we really need to think about. So yeah, like I said, this is only a quick job. I'm testing the computer to make sure it doesn't have the blue screen of death like it did on the last live stream, because obviously for Patreon users they do pay for this service, so I thought I'd give this a quick hour to see how it works. But yeah, make CPU and GPU stress test while doing TA. Well, too late for that now. Too late. It was crashing at the most weirdest moments, to be honest. I don't know if anyone's noticed, I've upgraded to Windows 10 as well, which has been a sad day for me because I absolutely love Windows 7. But I've noticed a massive difference since I've done it. So, and I was sick of people leaving comments on my YouTube about how much of a an idiot I was for using Windows 7, so they were probably right. So peer pressure does work in the end. Right, our EOS and Algo. Alright, let's have a look. We've got one of these up already. We'll have a look at EOS. So EOS doing okay, really, if you think about it in terms of chart. We're still in the bullish section of the Bollinger Band. You can't say that for Bitcoin, breaking down all the way down to the bottom side of the Bollinger Band. So EOS still actually looking okay. Who would have thought it, eh, that EOS held up this well? Well, I mean, in terms of actual percentage-wise, it's been wrecked. 25%, that's 24%. Even from the top there to the bottom, that was almost 34%. So completely wrecked in that respect. But when we're talking about top caps, in my opinion, are the ones to be in, if any. Because they've got the stronger charts on the weeklies, and these are the charts that hold most relevance. So conversion baseline crossover here above the cloud going green and moving up. Everything about this weekly chart is looking pretty good. The only thing that I would say that isn't particularly strong about it, no, it's not even about it being strong, is that well, it's not so bad now, but we were really overextended over here. And when we were doing the live stream, well, when was that? Friday. We were talking about this, weren't we? We were talking about how overextended all of these altcoins really were, and to think about taking profit. For me personally, I was taking profit into Bitcoin, because I was saying, how far can they go? Normally when you see something so extended on a weekly Bollinger Band, then it generally has to come down. That's the rule of the Bollinger Bands. But as far as the money flow index is concerned, the RSI was definitely quite high, but it can obviously go higher. But this is a weekly. It's never been this high on this chart before. It's very high. For EOS, then it had to come down, so it's come down now, and actually, you know, it could quite easily come down further, and it wouldn't bother me either. Again, this is a very strong setup on the weekly. If you watched my video when this dump happened, I said, look, what we've got here is we've got a massive dump that's going to scare a lot of people, but really, if you look closer behind the price, what we actually do have is a really strong setup here. Conversion baseline cross above the cloud. The Chiku span way above the price action here. It was around about here. This is where we were at the time. 26 periods behind that cross was here, which was a great signal, and this is the signal to play. And this is why, you know, most of my EOS was being bought down in this accumulation zone. There, I did put one more purchase in down here because it was rude not to. With a setup like this, very clear sign that it was going to go up, and it has gone up. Now, this doesn't mean that the end. This is not the end, by the way. This is a volatile asset. We all know that, and sometimes people just don't get it. Do you know what I mean? Price goes up, price goes down. People just don't get it. But what I look at is strength of trend and possibility of a continuation of trend. So I knew that was going to happen overall on this chart. I knew that the chart was going to reverse anyway. That's why I was buying blindly down here at any old place. I also knew it was going to happen down here, that this was a gift to be buying back at, and if this dumps down to the 10 exponential, this could bring us down another further 20%, and it would still remain strong. So that would be down to $5.50. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but I completely would not be surprised if it did happen. So if we were to measure the top of the wick down to there, that would be a 38% retracement. No big deal. I imagine that this would have been a similar move. Yeah, even worse actually, 43%. So these things don't bother me, because again, you know, if you see things in terms of trend the same way that I do, long-term trend, then this is kind of not even halfway up from where we're looking to go. We've finally made our way up to, I suppose, this wick over here, just topped out, I guess, this wick here that corresponds to these zones over here. No big deal, no big deal. You know, it will continue up throughout the rest of the year. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you press buy today, it's going to go straight up. But it will go up throughout the rest of the year, and I really honestly do expect a full retracement of its price throughout the rest of the year. So it's more, I suppose, of an investment. You know, that's why I only ever bought down in the accumulation zone and then bought a little bit more down here, because since we got that signal, because it was this signal which meant all the difference. You know, this is a clear accumulation. You buy here, wait for it to, you know, start its uptrend, and then this is a confirmation of a long-term uptrend on a weekly. So I'm not concerned over this. I think it is going to go up, but do not expect it to go instantly up from here, especially with Bitcoin looking the way it is. And if Bitcoin goes down, it goes down. This comes down with it. If Bitcoin, you know, comes back to life like I expect it to, I actually don't expect it to dump. You know, I talked about that death crossing coming on the 4 hourly. I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly really don't think that that's going to happen. And so with that in mind, I still think that this is good to go, even if it comes down to $5.50. I think that would be a perfect entry point if we were lucky enough to get it, for those who hadn't already got EOS. Right, so that's that one done for you. Let's have a look at EOS. Sushi, okay. Bit of a wild card is Sushi, to be honest with you. I haven't traded that in a little while. Yeah, it looks like it's been wrecked. Yeah, it's been wrecked. But again, you know, similar to EOS in the way that it formed. I mean, this is great on the weekly. Look at this. I mean, it's pretty much every single week it was going up, but it's not going up anymore. Weekly's not going to give us much, to be honest, because it's not a very old chart. But for what we do have is that we've come down to the 20 weekly as of this massive big dump. We came down to the 20 weekly. That comes in at $11.40. We're also, if you think about it in this term, we are below the we're below the 10 exponential, which is not a good sign. What we really need to do is reclaim that. That comes in at around about $14.20, we'll call it. Reclaim that, reverse that damage, because otherwise what's going to happen, we're going to get squeezed into this little zone here, and it's going to form like a wedge formation, and it's going to have to break one way or another. Breaking down from this 20 weekly, I would imagine it to get completely wrecked. But you know, we're going to have to go to a daily, I suppose, to see what's going on with it on the daily. So below all major moving averages, far away from that that death cross there. What's the 4 hourly saying? That's the important thing. Death cross on the 4 hourly. Yeah, death cross over here, which is probably why it suffered for so long when everything else was popping. So we've got the death cross. We'll measure that from the top to the bottom. It's a 20% retracement. Fair enough. Geared up for a move, and now we've got another death cross. So I mean, it is what it is. It's not very. I would personally, I would not be too keen on trading this one at all, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'd forget about this one, to be honest. Forget about it until it actually picks up and gets a strong uptrend on a daily. At the moment, it's way too risky. Yeah, hit the like button if you like. Don't feel afraid. But like I say, this is just a little tester. We've only got another 40 minutes of this live stream left. It was just a tester to see how this computer is going to hold up, because obviously this is mainly for Patreon users. You know, they pay £7.50 a month. You get 16 hours worth of live streams a month. And the last live stream I did, I got 2 blue screens of death, and that is, you know, even though £7.50 a month is not that much money, I still like to offer value for money. So the blue screen of death is not value for money. If they made a crypto squashmallow, would you buy it? I don't know. I don't know about that. Noticed you've been on Windows 7. Yeah, I've been on Windows 7 for a really long time. I've got other computers and laptops with Windows 10. I like the simplicity of Windows 7, but since upgrading it today to Windows 10, I've noticed a massive difference. So it's just me being I mean, I'm only 35, but I feel like an old git, refusing to move with the times. So yeah, I've moved to Windows 10, and I thought I'd be missing Windows 7, but instantly I had no regrets. ENJ, let's have a look at that. I would still be on Windows 7 if it wasn't for those blue screens of death as well. I would still be on it. It was, that's. I was in love with Windows 7. What can I say? It's hard to part with such an old friend. Right, so this one doesn't look particularly good. So let's have a look at how this uptrend started. So we've got a conversion baseline cross over here and a golden cross from all the way back down here. So we've been in an uptrend, slow and steady from all the way back down here. Picked up pace with the Ichimoku cloud crossing over here. That ended abruptly because of this dump. Because the Chiku span avoided the price action, meaning that this uptrend is still technically in place. So it was a bit of a strange one to read, really, because normally you'd expect this to touch the price action before we get a negative cross, but because this dump has been so aggressive, technically this uptrend, which started all the way back down, I suppose back down here, or maybe possibly even down here, has come to an end. So what it's going to need to do now is to reshuffle itself, and if it's going to go into another aggressive uptrend, it'll need a stronger signal. Let's go to the weekly. The weekly's still strong, though. In all fairness, it's still strong, but it's not very. I'd say it's not very old. It's old enough, isn't it? It's old enough. So the weekly would say to me that this dump here to this wick is almost going to correspond to where this 10 exponential is, which would be the area where I'd expect anything to get picked up on a weekly first pass. So let's just go back down to a daily and try and work this out a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, we've seen this with a lot of alts not that long ago. You know, over the last month, some of these alts got wrecked on one of the last dumps from Bitcoin, and they all came down to the green 50 exponential, or you could argue this little skinny purple one here, which is the 50 moving average. They're more or less both in the same area here. That for ENJ is $2.28. If you were lucky enough to try and get in at that price action, you probably would try it, and that's an opportunity to catch a knife. Simply catch a knife, right? There's no uptrend here. You're catching a knife, so you are, I suppose, buying this in the hope that it goes up for at least just a bounce. May not go into an uptrend, so just bear that in mind. You know, that's what we're talking here. We're talking about opportunities for bounces, rather than opportunities to buy and then sail all the way to the moon like we have done in the past with many of these charts. If we stand back and think about what's really going on here, technically we've been told by this cross here that this trend has now come to an end, and we need to find another way to prove that a new uptrend is going to begin. And even though, you know, we've got moving averages that are diverging, we go to a 4-hourly chart. Yeah, it's similar to Bitcoin. We're below this moving average here, the 200 exponential. Being below there and staying below there will cause a death cross. So if you really wanted to get ahead of the game, you'd have to look at all of these charts on the 4-hourly to see what is going to transpire into the larger term time frames. The weekly still looks okay. The daily could probably catch a decent bounce from those levels, if not bouncing already from those levels, but the 4-hourly is going to tell a different story. And if we was very steep 50 moving average, 50 exponential there, so this just gives us a rough idea of the time. Is this coming in at the 22nd? Yeah, about the same as Bitcoin. So between the 22nd and the 23rd, we really need to pull ourselves up more or less from where we are at this very moment in time. That 200 exponential is pretty much where we're getting rejected from as we speak. $2.55. So we'll call it $2.60, reclaiming there and staying above there, and preferably being above there on the 4-hourly. We'll avoid that death cross, and that's what we really need to hope for. If you have a look at how it's behaved on the last dump down, pretty much tagged that and moved straight away afterwards. Not this time, unfortunately, but again, it's a different situation. It's a different ball game at the moment, isn't it? Because that dump that took place wasn't your average dump. It's not a normal dump. That was a black swan dump, isn't it? Really, it's a black swan dump. Right. I've lost track of where we are. Excellent price to bright EOS. I'm moving all over the place. I've not got any system in today's live stream. VET. Let's have a look at VET, shall we? Well, I'm very happy with the way that this computer's holding up at the moment. It definitely seems faster than it's always been. I'm not one of those people that wants to spend loads of money on a computer. I'd rather create a Frankenstein's monster, which is basically what I've got here. It's fast though, I can tell you, it's definitely fast. You know, on paper, it's good. Apart from the price tag is like a fraction of what it should be for a computer this fast. Right. Really strong chart, definitely still strong on the daily there. That's the only thing that would concern me. Floating in no man's land on the weekly. You know, for those who know the Bollinger Band strategy, the price action 95% of the time will be inside the Bollinger Band, right? So this does lend itself to the possibility of maybe not this week or maybe not next week, but the price coming down or not being able to go much higher than it already is. I would be very, very, very surprised if we got another one of these weeks. I'd be shocked, in fact, because it's massively overextended. That was our 121% weekly candle, leading us into zero gravity outside of this Bollinger Band. So that is just not normal, and being above there and, you know, opening and closing in there, it does lend itself to coming down. That's with or without the market being bearish. So we're also at a 94 read on the money flow index, which is normally the highest. You know, about 96 is where I would ever say get out of a trade. It's the highest it's ever been for VeChain. So and in the past, I mean, it's going to be difficult to see it because the price has just been so crazy. Let's just see how the money flow index is has corresponded with these tops in the past. So we got our read here. That was the last time we got a massive peak, and we came down and then popped up one more time. Bit of bearish divergence going on there, and then came down. And the other peak on the money flow index pretty much hit the nail on the head there. So this is the highest the money flow index has ever been on VeChain, and we're outside the Bollinger Band on the weekly. So I'm more in favour of this making a larger move down than it would move up. But it's definitely a strong chart, and one that is probably going to remain strong, throughout the rest of the year. But in the very short term, I think it wants to come down. I think this relief bounce, which is an amazing recovery that we've had, just speaks to me as in people just do not want to give this up. That was amazing. That was amazing. From that wick to where we are right now, it's a 40% move. I still think that it'll likely that the momentum will fizzle down a bit. It'll cool down. I'm not saying it's going to dump, but I'm just saying it's going to cool down and not make any more significant highs at this point. But entry points for me would always be at the 10 exponential on the daily first pass, and that comes at just below 20 cents. 19.5 cents. So it's a great chart. It's been great for a long time. A lot of people on my Telegram trade this, and I don't blame them. To be honest with you, it's not even a chart that you really needed to trade. You just needed to buy it, didn't you, really, and just allow it to do its thing. One of the best ones out there. But yeah, the upside, it looks a little bit overstretched at the moment. So I'd be surprised to see it go up a great deal further than we are right now. Okay, we'll look at FET, shall we? But I don't have a great deal of good news for you, unfortunately, with FET. So we traded FET back down here where we got the signal. We got, if you watch my channel, you know what we were trading. But there was a conversion baseline cross, Itchy Cloud, perfect setup. Retest of the golden cross, perfect setup. And our entry point, well, mine personally was 5.5 cents. And we traded this, and I said, look, we'll get out when the signal tells us to get out. First was here, and that's obviously already a 10x there, so you can't complain. And then we were officially told to get out over here, and we got a relief pump because of the airdrop for FET holders. So me personally, when you go up 10x, and especially with a chart with reasonably good fundamentals, I thought I'll take half my profit, and I expected a downtrend, and this is what we're getting now. We are in a downtrend. Now let's go to the 4 hour to see how bad it is. Death cross already. So we've got our death cross on FET, which would lend itself to further downside, unfortunately. I know it's not nice to hear, because there's a lot of people who love FET on my channel. So it's this death cross is always going to happen. It would appear that it was always going to happen, but it's only been emphasized with this dump. So if we just measure it from the 200 exponential to where we are at right now, as a 19%, 25%, we would often expect about a 30% retracement from a 4 hourly death cross. So if that was the case, that would bring us to a price of about 40 cents, or 39.40 cents. So now what we'll do is we'll have a look at what that means on the chart. Does that have any kind of reason for us to bounce around 40 cents? Is there a reason for that? Kind of, I suppose it's a bit contrived. So this would be the zone, this would be the area that I'd expect to see a bounce from. We do have a bit of rejection going on here, and one wick bouncing from there. So, and it is a round number. You know what people are like. People like round numbers. So 40 cents would be probably my target, if any, to pick it up at the first opportunity. However, when we look at the way that this has moved in the past, especially on this last big run, it was a very similar setup. Conversion baseline cross, moved up massively, and then when the downtrend did officially end, this was a lot more aggressive than the one that we've had recently. But when it did officially end, we had a very, very significant retrace. We'll just measure it from these zones here for where we got our relief bounce after the negative cross. That did retrace to 70% from the bottom to top. It's also a different setup, so we're not going to look at that and go, it has to go down by this amount. 40 cents would be an appropriate entry point based on technical analysis, but it then could also go down further. This isn't a strong coin at the moment, unfortunately. It's not strong. The move has been made, and now it's cooling off. I mean, it did more than a 10x. It was like a 12 or maybe 13x from the entry point. You know, and it was based on TA. Now what's happened is that it's cooling down. It's consolidating. It's dumping really. And then to make matters worse, they did some airdrop deal with Binance, which I don't like those sort of things, even though it's good for those people who want to make use of that airdrop. But what that is it's a form of manipulation of the chart, and FET had always been had always avoided those kind of pump tweets or whatever, you know. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm sure it'll recover. But there's absolutely no signs of recovery on it right now. Right, so where are we going? EOS. What is that? ARRR. Is that on Binance? Because if it's not, we're not going to be able to see it. Not here. DOT. Alright, let's have a look at DOT. I'll be interested to see what's going on with that. It's a top cap coin, but the chart isn't very old, so that kind of takes away a lot of the powers. So this one actually looks a little worse than others. So if we compared this to the way that EOS looked, EOS is holding above the center of the Bollinger Band, so it's still in a, you know, very much I wouldn't say bullish, but it's in the bullish territory, whereas this is far from that. This has come down below the center and actually below the Bollinger Band, and currently even below the Bollinger Band still now. So that doesn't look very good. That doesn't bode well for it. Go to a 4 hour to see how that's shaping up. So yeah, incoming death cross, quite steep. So very much the same as Bitcoin. But as far as an altcoin is concerned, don't really like the look of the way it looks on the daily here. Weekly's not going to be old enough to really give any kind of vibe on that one. The only thing we've got going in our favour is that 10 exponential there. $34.50. It doesn't look strong enough on the daily. It does lend itself to further downside, and if that was the case, the 20 weekly is the obvious place. 27% retracement from where we are, you know, more or less right now. And then I would imagine that would be an appropriate place to buy this. It doesn't look very strong, unfortunately, so I cannot say anything other than if you want to try and catch a knife, you can catch a knife. And this would be maybe, you know, it's not even really an area to catch a knife at, because we're below the 50 exponential moving average. I know that we dumped down below there before and recovered pretty well actually, but doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it now. It's in the top 10, isn't it? So it is top cap. It should move through association, but it just doesn't look very strong right now. But you know, catching knives can be fruitful. It adds a whole area of risk. That is something that I just generally don't really like to do on something that looks like this. Catching a knife is literally called catching a knife because it is like trying to catch a knife, and you could get seriously injured doing something like that. Yeah, so we'll leave that one. Again, if you caught that knife and it bounces over the next week, then you can come back and gloat to me about how well it worked out for you, and I'll be very happy for you. It's just not my style. I like to have some support below me, and I like to at least be above most moving averages. Right, let's have a look at some of these others. PPT, is that a Binance job? I'm clicking on everything apart from what I need to click on. Yes, it is. Okay, only 12 down today. Right, so this is a weird one. Was this by any chance a victim of a pump group? It looks like it probably was, which is unfortunate to see. So let's zoom in, because those pump groups wreck charts, basically, is what they do. If you don't know what I mean by that, without this pump, if this was a pump group, right, which I think it looks like it was, that's generally the signature of a pump group, this red cloud wouldn't be here. It just wouldn't be here. And this means a lot to me. The Ichimoku cloud means a great deal to me. So what we'll need to look at now is try and imagine what it would be like without that red cloud. So strength of trend begins over here. We've always been pretty wicky. 97 bitcoins in a 24-hour period. Okay, so we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Without this anomaly cloud, we'll call it, let's just ignore it. I will just forget about it, pretend it's not here, because this pump group has destroyed this chart. They've taken away a really really strong component of being able to trade appropriately, which is unfortunate. So we'll just have to imagine it's not there and hope that bots and algorithms also imagine that it's not there. Not that I imagine that bots and algos are trading PPT. So we're above all major moving averages and we're still diverging, and I actually found support here on the 10 exponential. So if there were to be a place to bounce, it would be here, and if it didn't bounce, it would come down to this level here, which is 8,316 sats. Still remaining in what I would imagine to be a decent uptrend. The problem is this bloody cloud here is, I suppose, ruining it for the general health of this chart. But if we and also if you think about what this has done here, this caused an Ichimoku cloud conversion baseline cross all the way up here during a pump group, and then a negative one over here. So we just have to ignore that whole Ichi cloud strategy, which is a shame, because this is one of the main things that we would ever do to gain strength of trend. So we did get one here, but for what it's worth, look at that. These aren't normal. We don't get conversion lines crossing baselines like that, and we don't have baselines going straight down like that and then getting a positive cross. That's just not what's supposed to happen. So maybe we'll just ignore it and just say, okay, it looks good, which it does. It does look good. Let's go to a 4 hourly to see how that looks. 4 hourly actually looks good as well, holding up on the green 50 exponential. So obviously it took a hit with the market, but actually it's been the better chart to look at this evening. So maybe I'll keep my eye on that myself. It does look okay. Doesn't mean that we can't suffer further downside. We can. If we broke down further, 7,500. I'd be surprised if it did do that. It looks okay. I do actually like it, so I'm going to keep my eye on that one. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. I do like it. Right, what else are we having a peep at? FET Quantum, we've done you. Also, CC sends you Squashmallow if you want one. And my boyfriend, big fans. Right, is it a real thing? I mean, I just are you in my Telegram, Rachel? If so, send me a link. I'm always interested to learn about new stuff, obviously, but there's so much that I just don't take the opportunity on. But yeah, send me a message on Telegram and I'll have a look. If you're going to send me something for free, I'm up for that. Or if this is a big prank and everyone's laughing at me, fair enough to you. Wi-Fi 2. Let's have a look at that. So I actually really like this, and I'll continue to like it. But I have to say I don't like I just don't like the look of it right now. This one just doesn't catch a break. Every time you think something's going to happen, it just gets wrecked. It's very, very vulnerable. But you know, we've seen these sort of things, and you could argue that this is a giant accumulation zone. Let's have a look at something. Let's just see if anything works. I've never done this on this channel, on this chart before. We'll just have a peep at the fib retracement here, see if there's any kind of correlation to what's going on. Alright, so actually that does make me feel a little bit better about the trade that I'm in here. So yeah, what this would suggest generally is that this entire area, this red zone, is like what we would call the blood cellar. You're down in the blood cellar, and all this area down here is an accumulation zone. And this makes me feel a bit better in a way. It doesn't fill me with confidence that it's going to moon anytime soon. But taking out and reclaiming this zone here and closing and staying above 3,142. That's at that point it will start an uptrend. And to be honest with you, I don't think just getting above there is going to be enough for this one, because it's so vulnerable. I think we're going to have to start to see a conscious effort of these moving averages getting above there first, because it's just ever so vulnerable. That's the problem with it. So that's reassuring in a way to know that we're still in a massive accumulation zone. And from there to, I suppose it was about there, wasn't it? That was the accumulation zone. That's a 200% area. So buying down here would be great. Buying up here would be horrendous if we were to come all the way back down to, I suppose, the bottom zone. That's a 70% retracement from the top of the accumulation to the bottom. But let me show you something just for context. It's a completely different token and completely different vibe. But This is what we had going on with XRP for a very long period of time. This is a lot longer. This is a weekly chart. But yeah, blood cellar. We were in the blood cellar for a very long period of time. There was accumulations within this accumulation down here, very clear. And since then, we've recently just broken out, and now we're outside for the first time of this entire accumulation zone into a different vibe. And so when things break out of their lowest level of fibs, they should remain out of there. Again, this has been a very long accumulation period, and again, if we think about it in terms of what we've just seen on YFI2, if we see from the top to the bottom there, this is an 86% retracement from the top of that accumulation zone to the bottom. It's more than half that of what we've just seen on YFI. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay because I do expect this one to pick up one day. And actually, it's one of those tokens that if it's in an accumulation phase, even if it's a giant one like that, that's what you do really. You accumulate. It's like an investment really, more than a trade. So for those who haven't got the time to trade or probably aren't very good at it, and investing in something with a decent prospect of recovery, this would probably be one of those. But short term, it's wrecked, isn't it? It's wrecked again. We were wrecked on this occasion. We were wrecked on this occasion. This is what you expect, I suppose, when still in an accumulation. So don't get disheartened by it. But there's nothing on here to suggest that it's ready to moon until it breaks and closes above those zones. And in order to do that, I'd like to see the moving averages get above those zones too. So I'd want to see one of these, if it's probably the center of the Bollinger Band, get above the previous high here of about 3,200 thereabouts. So it's definitely not got its strength yet, but when it does, it will do okay. I have good vibes about it, and it's nice to see that is an accumulation period, even if it's a massive one. It's a massive one. What else we got here? A lot of people talking about Bepro. Well, I'm not going to look at it on this live stream. I'll tell you what, if you join the Patreon, we'll look at it tomorrow. I'll get the Kucoin chart up. I feel like I need to look at it because a lot of my friends have bought into it because they like to trade on things that they read on Reddit rather than anything else. I'm well aware that it's been completely wrecked recently, and I wouldn't mind getting involved at a decent area. I did give it a very brief look myself. And my low target of a possible entry point is like 0.7 of a cent, which might sound a bit low, but when you've got a chart that looks like the way it does, it reminds me of SXP and how that was FOMO'd into through, I don't know what the appropriate term would be, but everybody getting way too excited about it, reached $5 and then consolidated massively, retraced to about 90%. It does look a little bit like that. It does remind me of that kind of chart, so I'm not suggesting that it's I'm not suggesting that it's going to do a 90% retracement, but it's possible. You're gonna okay. I don't want to. I'm not muscling in on anyone's girlfriends here. I've got my own family. I'm taken. I was just thought someone was going to give me something, but yeah, as in like a token. So don't worry. No one's a threat here. I'm just a voice on the internet. CHR. Right then. Yeah, it's a lot like many of these others that we've seen. I think the problem we've got with tokens like this is similar to that of FET, right? When we have something that moons massively, and then when we have a wick that looks like this wick represents wreckage. This wick represents people buying and then people dumping into those, and then on top of that not really finding any relief bounce all the way, and then breaking down below the center of the Bollinger Band and then staying below there, having a very quick relief bounce and now being wrecked by the entire market's health. This also turning red isn't a good sign also. Let's check the 4 hourly, see how devastating this is. So it's still not got the death cross, but that is something that's incoming. So this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that Bitcoin for me is the only thing that I'm looking to buy. Obviously I do hold 50% of my alts at the moment. I'm not looking to buy any because if things do get nasty, the nastiness will only be emphasized by alts. And yeah, I mean this has been hanging on for a while now. just managing to get out of having this death cross, and now we're below all the major moving averages on the 4 hourly. This death cross might even happen over the next 24 hours, to be honest. Yeah, death cross is due tomorrow, or at least in the next 24 to 36 hours. If we cannot reclaim that 200 exponential, 34 cents, we have to reclaim that desperately. You can see that on this bounce we got rejected from it, come back down, so we have to reclaim that as a matter of urgency. Otherwise things will probably get particularly nasty for this one. So yeah, sorry about that. Cover, is that a ticker? I think it might be. Have I seen something like that? Yeah. So that is a really bad on the 4 hourly. Already had our death cross from back down here, but to what extent has that played? We'll measure it from the last time we hit the 200 exponential, all the way down to basically to almost today's wick. So there's 58% retracement from that death cross. So that's a pretty bad. Pretty bad. I mean, this isn't a very old chart, so it doesn't give me a great deal to go by. All indicators are dictated by volume, price, and time. And so when you've got something that's not very old like this, I mean, we've taken away the time component to a large extent, but from what we do have, we can see that we're very bearish, to be honest. We're below the centre of the Bollinger Band, being rejected from it even before this dump. But yeah, we came up to test it again today, dumpage. The only thing we've got going for us, I suppose, would be to look at previous supports that we've had, and this one does look like it's relatively strong from the wick that we had the other day down before the dump. So we've got zones here where we did have a nice bounce from. You could argue that these were zones too. Wick down there, and an attempt to get down there here. So it's quite an expensive coin, this, isn't it? $372 would likely find a bounce. But it might not be the bounce that you're looking for. But if there was an entry point before the depths of hell were opened up to swallow this coin, that would be it, really. And that's pretty much it, really. I don't have a great deal of other things to say about it, really. It's dancing around a very, very it's the support of dreams, really. If it doesn't work, it will get nasty. That's all I have to say on that one. I mean, it's already done a hell of a lot of a retracement since that 4 hourly death cross, hasn't it? So right, ADA, let's have a look at that. And we've only got 9 minutes left, but I am doing another live stream tomorrow, but that's for Patreon users. So if you want to join up, £7.50 a month, feel free to do so, and you'll get 2 live streams, 2 hours a piece, twice a week. 16 hours a month, bargain, absolute bargain. So looking okay, actually. If you see the way that we bounced today on the green 50 exponential, so we've come down to test it. It's I'm not going to say it's bullish or anything, but it's stronger than most of these altcoins that we've seen so far. So a really desperate attempt to make a decent bounce. So yesterday on this mega wick, we came down to tag exactly the bottom of the Bollinger Band. So that sort of behaviour is kind of reassuring, because it's telling me that, I mean, obviously with volume of this size, it's telling me that it's being traded actively, because it's respecting moving averages and Bollinger Bands. Even throughout the majority of this, it's been respected. So even look, I mean, the 50 exponential got tagged here. The move up was from the centre of the Bollinger Band. The only problem we've got is that we are looking like, if we carry on like this, we're going to close below the centre of the Bollinger Band, and then that offers itself to a potential downtrend. I bet the 4 hourly probably looks okay. Yes, we've got a lot more time on our hands for this one to recover on the lower term time frames. I mean, it's not particularly good. Just like many others, we're being held below this 200 exponential, very much like what Bitcoin is going to be, in the same vibe. So again, yeah, everything is going to be, in fact, it's stronger than Bitcoin. If we look at ADA, it's stronger than Bitcoin at the moment, but it's still going to be vulnerable to a failing Bitcoin. So the chart is Bitcoin's chart, but it's a much better, much healthier equivalent to Bitcoin at the moment. but it's, you know, until we reclaim this zone here, this moving average on the 4 hourly, it is still vulnerable to an incoming death cross, which at this trajectory would probably take about 5 or 6 days maybe to play out, unless we came down further from here, and it obviously would emphasize, it would speed up that cross. So pretty much the price that we're at right now, $1.23, $1.25. I'd like to see that reclaimed and supported above there. All of these charts rely very heavily on the 4 hourly if you really want to try and get the edge, I suppose, because they do tell the early warning signals that perhaps downtrends could be possible if we can't get ourselves out of this quicksand that we're in right now. And that quicksand is basically the 200 exponential moving average. Everything, you know, that should always be below us on every time frame. And unfortunately, the 4 hourly is the lowest time frame as far as times are concerned, of any real significance that offer up I suppose a prolonged trend, whether that's up or down. So we are looking down the barrel of a gun at the moment. We're trying to negotiate, you know, with the armed robber, you know, how we can get out of this. And we, you know, my analogy, I suppose, isn't really working out. I might as well speak about the moving average. We just have to reclaim these moving averages, which is the 200 exponential on pretty much all of these coins that we're looking at. It's telling the same story, and it's going to be based mainly on Bitcoin's health, I have to say. Right, where are we? SXP. Okay, it's an interesting call. Let's have a look at SXP. Always the sometimes it's the best thing I've ever seen, sometimes it's the worst thing I've ever seen. So yeah, you know, obviously same vibe. And actually, if we apply the Ichimoku cloud on this one, we do have a negative cross here, but a lot of these are going to be very contrived crosses considering the horrendous dumps that we've had here. So we'll forget about that, and we'll just look at the moving averages. Below the 200 exponential, simple as that, has to reclaim that. We've got more time than some of these other alts to recover. It looks like this kind of speed, this kind of trajectory, roughly going to get about the 23rd, so the same as Bitcoin's really. The daily is... Yeah, so the daily is not looking particularly strong below the centre of the Bollinger Band, but this is how this chart has behaved anyway. So there's if we forget about the wick, this setup wouldn't actually surprise me on the way that it's behaved anyway. So massive move up down to the green 50, massive move up down to the green 50, massive move up down to the green 50. So yeah, with or without this whole situation with Bitcoin, this chart is still looking okay. I mean, this is the sort of thing we expect from SXP. But being below this level of what we wanted to see it as support, it's obviously now going to be a resistance zone. That's the previous candle body tops over there. Being below there is not good, and also the centre of the Bollinger Band, we're below that also. So the bears have got the upper hand ever so slightly, but just judging this on its overall behaviour and how it's behaved in the past, the green 50 exponential does usually offer an opportunity here to bounce from. Again, the whole thing is based on Bitcoin. Now, just before we look at any more of these other charts, I mean, I know this is all sounding really nasty and depressing actually, but if you've watched my video that I made today, and I did touch on it yesterday, there is a glimmer of hope here, which is this area. This is the money flow index on Bitcoin, and I suppose we'll wrap up with this because I was only going to do it for an hour. So we'll just wrap up with this and just just take this to the bank. All right, doesn't mean that this is definitely going to happen because things can always change. Things don't always have to be the same. But since 2019, since September 2019, we had this money flow index dictating areas of bottoming and bouncing. Red candle, bottoming, and then bouncing. Then red candle, bottoming, and then I suppose bouncing a little bit. These look deceptive. These are actually quite big moves. We'll zoom in closely and we'll just have a look at exactly what's been going on here, just so we can just get a bit more of an idea of what these bounces are, because they look tiny on that chart when you look at it like that. So look, this was a parabolic top, coming down, and the money flow index hitting that trend line for the first time here, for the very first time. Okay, so the trend didn't really exist back here, but when it did hit it, we did catch a bounce to the tune of 33%. So it's not much, but it's something. Then we came down to test it again here. So red money flow index hit there, and then bottomed out around this zone here on this wick down here, and we got a bounce of 59%, almost 60%. Then the March crash coming down. Bear in mind this is a higher low, so a higher low. and then bottomed out again, and then we rallied from that point here, from the money flow index read, I suppose, here to the next peak was 177%, and now since then we've not come down to touch it. And I've always said, look, keep an eye on this money flow index on the weekly. Wherever we are, whether we crash down into it or whether the trend line catches up to the money flow index read, there's a very strong chance that we will bounce from there wherever it is, or it'll push us up on our next big peak. So this is a weekly chart, all right. So I'm not saying that we can't come down another 5 or 10% price-wise with Bitcoin right now. We obviously could. If we just measure where we are at right now to that 10 exponential, that's almost a 5% move, I suppose, give or take. That's another 5% move, bringing us to the tune of 53,350. Okay, fair enough. That could happen. We could also get a wick down to our previous wick low from last week, or just from the other day, really, from yesterday. That's okay, because this is a weekly. This will not make a massive difference to this little squiggle on here. This is not going to make a massive difference to it. And in fact, if we look at the way that it's behaved on some of these, we do come down to essentially test it. Especially on this occasion here, we tested it, had a little move up, came back down to retest it, and then did that move of, what was that, about 60%, 70%. It's a weekly, all right. So this isn't a margin trader's cheat sheet. This is, I suppose, a glimmer of hope with a long-standing trend line. The only problem I would have would be this MACD coming in thick and fast on this cross. But again, I would hold more relevance to the way that the money flow index has had this strong trend line ever since. And if we bear that in mind, there's plenty of room for it to move before it gets potentially overextended. We get overextended around about 95, 96, just like any chart would. And we've got plenty of room to move if we were to put in a giant, not parabolic, but a significant local top before a decent consolidation. Now that whole scenario could easily be front run. Also, that parabolic top or this new local top that I would expect to play out over the next month or so, if the money flow index read is still in play. It might not be, it might break down from here, but if it's still in play, then I would also look at this RSI and wait for this to get tagged on the third pass. And we've still got plenty of room to move. We're not safe. This isn't a safe zone, but it's safer than most, and that could move up quite a lot, offering a nice move up. So I still think that the odds are in favour of the bulls overall on the bigger picture, even over the next month. To the next month or two, but the short-term time frame is basically the 4-hourly. It's a battle that's ensuing, and that's what we need to focus on. We need to make sure that we do reclaim that and we avoid that death cross on Bitcoin and across all these other assets that we've just looked at today. And whatever I haven't looked at, I would urge you to look at it in the same way. Focus it on the 4-hourly. Is there a death cross? How far away is that death cross on the 4-hourly? And bear that in mind. We have to reclaim the 200 exponential on all of these assets in order for them to start a new uptrend. If we fail to do that, we're not going to get an uptrend, and it starts on the 4-hourly. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you want to join the Patreon, I've mentioned it 100 times, but the links are in the description below. Otherwise, the Telegram channel's free. Join that, all in the description. And I hope you have a nice evening, and I'll hope to see some of you tomorrow in the actual live stream. Take it easy, everyone.